"Hey, janitor, clean up this mess now!" Their mocking laughter exploded through the terminal like gunfire, echoing off the walls, humiliating, cruel, and loud enough to turn heads everywhere. But within minutes, the entire airport froze in shock as that same black man marched straight into the cockpit, snapped on his captain's stripes, and drove power into the engines of a giant jet, because the man they tried to belittle was the commander of the skies. This is not just a story, this is a reckoning, a fight, and a truth that will shake you to your core. So watch until the very last second. Before we dive deep, what country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and if you believe that dignity, skill, and perseverance should never be judged by the color of a man's skin, then hit subscribe button right now, hit the like button, and stay with me till the last second, because this story will leave your heart racing, your soul burning, and your faith in justice unshaken. Now, back on that bright Thursday morning, at the airport, Marcus Hill, a tall, broad-shouldered black man in his early 40s with calm eyes that carried both the storm of struggle and the steady focus of survival. He had spent decades mastering the sky, logging thousands of flight hours, rising through the ranks with sheer discipline. But on this day, dressed in plain clothes before his uniform change, people saw only what they wanted to see. To them, he wasn't a captain. He wasn't a leader of men. He was invisible, a shadow to mock, a stereotype to laugh at. The airport was alive with its usual rhythm. Rolling suitcases, boarding calls echoing over loudspeakers, passengers rushing to gates. Marcus walked through calmly, holding his pilot's case in one hand, his flight cap tucked neatly under his arm. He had just come off a long briefing with his crew, preparing to command a flight that carried hundreds of lives. But to a pair of arrogant businessmen sitting at the lounge doors, Marcus wasn't a captain. He was a black man in the wrong place, and in their shallow eyes that meant only one thing. The words pierced the air like venom. "Hey, janitor! Clean this up," one of them sneered, pointing to a coffee spill on the floor. The other laughed, adding fuel to the fire, while fellow travelers glanced, some smirking, some looking away, afraid to intervene. It wasn't just the insult, it was the weight of history behind it. The centuries of belittlement, of mockery, of dismissal. But Marcus didn't break. His silence was his strength, his composure unshaken. He walked past them, his grip on his flight case tightening, but his head held higher than ever. Inside, though, a familiar fire burned. A fire stoked by every rejection letter, every time someone told him he didn't belong, every whispered doubt about his competence. He entered the staff corridor, where the uniform transformed him from target to authority. Crisp white shirt, navy jacket with golden stripes on the shoulders, the emblem of leadership shining on his chest. He adjusted his tie, slid on his captain's cap, and stepped back into the same lounge, but now as the man in charge of the skies. The shift was electric. Gasps rippled across the room as passengers realized the janitor they mocked was the very man entrusted to fly them safely across the ocean. The businessmen's laughter died instantly, their faces pale as stone. The boarding process unfolded like a cinematic stage. Passengers filed into the aircraft, still whispering about what they had witnessed. Marcus stood at the cockpit door, greeting them with the calm authority only a true leader carries. The businessmen passed him slowly, avoiding eye contact, their arrogance shattered, replaced by a silent fear that every passenger now carried with them, the fear of being on the wrong side of truth. Inside the cockpit, Marcus settled into his captain's seat, his hands moving with flawless precision across the instruments. Years of training guided him as his co-pilot glanced at him with deep respect. Every button pressed, every lever checked, was a declaration that skill cannot be denied, no matter how much ignorance tries to bury it. When the engines roared to life, it wasn't just machinery awakening, it was justice taking flight. The runway stretched before them, endless and open, a reminder that the sky does not discriminate. And as the wheels lifted, carrying hundreds of souls into the clouds, Marcus felt the weight of history lift with them. Passengers whispered mid-flight, their respect growing with every smooth turn, every calm announcement over the intercom. The story spread through the cabin. The black man called a janitor, now commanding their safety thousands of feet above ground. For many, it was a lesson they would never forget. For Marcus, it was another day proving that dignity cannot be erased. Hours later, when the plane touched down safely, applause erupted across the cabin. It wasn't just for a flight well executed. It was for the silent war Marcus had won without raising his voice, without lifting a hand, only by embodying excellence. The businessmen who had mocked him were the first to rise, their faces red with shame as they shuffled off the aircraft, their arrogance dissolved in silence. And there, in the terminal, passengers whispered, pointing not at the businessmen, but at the black captain who had carried them with strength and grace. Marcus didn't need to confront his oppressors. The truth had spoken louder than any argument ever could. So the next time someone dares to judge a man by the color of his skin, instead of the weight of his skill, remember Marcus Hill. Remember the janitor they mocked who soared above them as captain. Remember that history bends toward justice, and dignity always rises higher than hate. If this story moved you, if it lit even a spark of pride, resilience, or strength within you, then don't just click away. Subscribe right now. Because stories like this are not just tales. They are reminders of who we are, what we endure, and how we rise. And I promise you this. The next story will shake you even deeper, and you won't want to miss it.